Welcome to this podcast for Brighton School of Business and Management students studying for the Btec Level 5 courses. For this unit you'll need to satisfy the criteria exactly as laid down in the assignment brief and as described here, but you should wherever possible use examples from the strategic marketing management activity taking place in your own organisation and business sector, as well as showing evidence of having studied the unit topics in depth and breadth by referring, where appropriate, to relevant models, theories and established best practices. To enhance your understanding of these assignment issues, we strongly advise that you also discuss them with senior managers and senior marketing staff within your own organisation and within your own business sector. Each section should be approximately 375 words, although this is flexible up to around 450 words, not including graphics or illustrations, so you'll need to keep your responses focused on what is being specifically asked for in each section. Section 1. There are numerous theories on how purchase decisions are made that you can consider here. You might want to look at how the purchase decision might vary depending on the type of purchase, for example whether it is a high value or a low value product, or whether it is a consumer or a business purchase. You could also evaluate some of the ideas around the post-purchase decisions a customer may make, which might influence whether or not they are likely to become repeat purchasers. Another factor to consider is the growing importance referral and recommendation has on purchase decisions, particularly with the increasing power of social media and online marketing in general. Bullet point 2 is looking at buyer behaviour, about which there are many theories and several models you could have a look at, before perhaps thinking about developing your own model based on or using some of the established theories as a starting point. You could also consider whether buyer behaviour is changing in response to the much greater access to product information and product recommendations that have been made possible by the internet. I think the reference to markets in the bullet point is really asking you to consider how buyer behaviour might change for different types of product. For example, branded versus non-branded goods, low cost and high cost products, consumer versus business purchases. There are a wide range of factors to consider when looking at bullet point 3. These include economic, behavioural, psychological and cultural considerations, and don't forget to explain how these factors affect buyer behaviour and, where possible, include some specific examples to illustrate the points that you are making. Bullet point 4 is primarily about branding and the importance of branding, but with particular reference to repeat purchasing. You need to think about the factors that are important in helping to build brand loyalty and develop a positive corporate image. And as asked in the question, you need to look at this complex relationship between brand loyalty and corporate image, and also think about brand image, which is not the same thing as corporate image, particularly for a large multi-product organisation. It would help here if you included some examples of real brands and companies from which you can draw some conclusions about brand loyalty and image as it relates to repeat purchase activity. On to section 2, which is looking at the use of market research techniques. Bullet point 1, here you need to evaluate different market research techniques, so you need to look at situations where particular techniques are likely to be effective and other situations where those techniques would perhaps not normally be used and where other research techniques would be more relevant. You can also think about the types of data that different research techniques provide, perhaps consider different uses or benefits of qualitative versus quantitative research, and the different situations in which primary research would be beneficial and situations where secondary research would be more cost effective. And also look at the value of internal versus external data sources when conducting secondary research. Bullet point 2 is looking specifically at using secondary data to achieve your objectives, so you could illustrate this by setting some typical objectives and then looking at which types and sources of secondary data you could use in order to meet these objectives. And of course make sure that your objectives are clear, achievable and measurable, and ensure that any conclusions that you have drawn are realistic and supported by your data. Bullet point 3, you need to address both issues raised in the bullet point, that is validity and reliability of research findings. So it would be worth here looking at some of the statistical processes involved in drawing up a valid and representative sampling frame and in analysing research findings in a valid and accurate way. Bullet point 4, which covers the preparation of a market research plan, I would suggest here that you first of all clearly identify the situation you're intending to research and also outline the objectives of the research and the questions to which you hope to provide answers. And make sure that your market research plan is logically set out and that it covers areas like sample selection, research methodology and timescale. You could also consider whether your plan is likely to include more than one methodology. Would you, for instance, conduct desk research to undertake a competitor analysis and perhaps do some primary research to solicit some customer opinions? And also make sure that you put forward a rationale to explain why you are suggesting the research methodology that you are putting forward. Section 3. The key word on bullet point 1 is really trends, with particular reference to future demand as specified in the introduction above. So look at your data carefully in case there are any discrete or less obvious trends that could be important in the future, or particular sectors of the market that are growing faster than others or declining at a different rate than the rest of the market. And if there are, why do you think these might be happening? There are two aspects to bullet point 2. First, you're being asked to plan a competitor analysis, so you need to define some objectives for the analysis, identify who and what you're going to research, and then clearly outline your methodology. Then use this plan in order to carry out your competitor analysis. Remember that the competitor analysis can cover much more than just market share or financial information. You should consider factors like competitors' geographical location, technological capability, and some of the more intangible factors like brand image, reputation, and customer perceptions. There is an interesting article on the Smarter website about this subject, which you can find at this web address, or you can go to www.smarter.com and type competitor analysis into the search box. On bullet point 3, you're not asked specifically to use the same organisation that you have used to address bullet point 2, but there are obvious benefits in doing this, and you should be able to identify clear opportunities and threats from the competitor analysis you have already undertaken. And keep in mind you're being asked to identify opportunities and threats for a specific product or service, not for the organisation as a whole. Section 4, bullet point 1 is asking you for an evaluation of different techniques, so not just a summary of the different techniques available. You need to look in more detail at issues like the effectiveness of different approaches, the reliability of the information provided, and perhaps why some techniques are better suited to certain situations than others. Bullet point 2, it would be useful here once you have designed your survey to include a very brief summary in your assignment just to say why you have designed the survey in the way that you have and perhaps why certain questions are included. You also need to keep in mind the purpose of a survey, which is usually to provide actionable data. So are you sure the information that has been provided by your survey is actionable, and will it allow decisions to be made that will ultimately lead to higher levels of customer satisfaction? Finally, if you need any further help or assistance with this assignment, please contact your tutor.